Now, as the nationwide race to vaccinate gains speed, one state appears to be lagging behind. In Mississippi, only a third of all residents have received at least one dose, even though appointments and vaccine supplies seem to be readily available. MSNBC's Yasmin Vossoughian joins us now from a vaccine site in Mississippi. Yasmin, good morning. Good to see you. So it seems like if supply is there and appointments are there, this is potentially a vaccine hesitancy issue. Is that the case? And if so, why is it so high in this specific state?
Yeah, I mean, going into Tuesday, the supply was certainly there, right? There was about 70,000 plus open slots in the state of Mississippi. Think about that for a moment. But you think about the makeup overall of the state, 40% of this state are Black Americans. On top of that, you got a lot of white conservative men. Those are the two predominant groups of folks that have the highest degree of vaccine hesitancy, specifically in this state, but also across the nation as well. This state was hard hit financially by the pandemic over the last year. So a lot of folks are not willing to take time off of their jobs to sign up for a vaccine to come out and get this vaccine. This is also an incredibly rural state. If you could see around me, honestly, there's not a lot. I mean, I'm in front of a healthcare facility, but you see one house and then for miles and miles, you don't see another house. So it's incredibly rural. It's tough to get to areas to actually get this vaccine. There's also a lack of trust in the government, as I've been hearing from folks. And a lot of people in these rural communities, they don't have access to internet. So they can't physically sign on and sign up for some of these open vaccine slots, and they don't actually know what's going on. So all of these things together, Savannah, are happening simultaneously at the same time. And so folks are having a hard time getting the vaccine out. But there's certainly a lot of ground game happening to promote the vaccine and get folks to the clinics and get those shots in arms.
So, Yasmin, one of the things that we know about the Johnson & Johnson shot is the fact that it was this one dose and it didn't need to be kept at those extremely cold special temperatures, meant that it was easier to get to rural communities. It meant that it was the ideal vaccine for a mobile clinic, for example, to get out to those people who do live further away from any of these medical centers. What's the pause in that particular vaccine done to these communities?
It's tough. It's really hit them hard. And you actually put it perfectly. I mean, it is ideal for a community like this for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's Johnson & Johnson. It's brand recognition, right? Johnson & Johnson makes the baby shampoo that we've all known for decades. And literally, it's brand recognition. And a lot of people know Johnson & Johnson. They don't know Moderna. They don't know Pfizer. So they opted for Johnson & Johnson. They wanted to wait for Johnson & Johnson. Also, it's a one-shot deal because it's a rural community. It costs $25, $30. It's a lot of money for folks out here to get to a clinic to actually get the shot. So if they only have to do that once, it's a lot more of an incentive than to have to come back twice. Also, if they're already hesitant, as we were talking about a little bit earlier, it's easier to sign up mentally for one shot than it is to sign up for two. And I heard that a lot over and over. I actually spoke to one woman yesterday, Pam CHATMAN. She is the head of Boss Lady Workforce. It's an organization essentially trying to organize folks to get to these clinics to get the shots, providing transportation, providing incentives, Visa cards, essentially, that will give them $25, $30 to get to these clinics to get the shots in arms, and also educating folks on the ground in some of these rural communities about these shots to encourage them to get the vaccine so we can all reach herd immunity. She talked to me about that day on Tuesday when we heard from the CDC and the FDA essentially saying we're going to pause the further release of Johnson & Johnson. And she said it really put a wrench in their efforts going forward. Let's take a listen to Pam.
Yesterday was almost like the worst day of my life. We were all excited because we had so many people committed to taking the J&J. And as soon as we informed them that they had taken it off the shelves, they panicked. Everybody left. They canceled their appointments. We had local industries that had committed to bringing their employees over to get vaccinated, and no one wanted it. That not that they just said, I don't want it. They just didn't want it, and they didn't want to take Moderna. They were out.
Why?
I think people say one shot is enough. A lot of people are afraid of needles. A lot of people are afraid of what the government is doing. They feel like they're going to be statistic, used for data. And so they just don't want to do it. They said one time is just enough for us, just one time.
So, Savannah, it's interesting. I was actually interviewing Pam in a church, right? She specifically asked if we could meet at a church. And one of the reasons is it's all about the church, right? She mentioned to me this is essentially the Bible Belt. We all know that. a lot of folks rely on their church leaders for education, for guidance in situations like this. So the community, the local government, I spoke to the mayor yesterday as well, they are engaging church leaders to help educate their parishioners about getting this vaccine, how to get it, where to get it, when to get it. And Pam has really been engaging the church and the leaders in the church to help educate folks on the ground and identify folks in rural communities. Because if you think about it, I mean, you don't even know where people live out here. It is so rural. So they have to understand who actually needs it, who is homebound, who is elderly, and who they need to communicate with to actually get this vaccine. It's tough. But it is a community effort, and there's a major ground game, as I mentioned earlier, going on. They have billboards. They are handing out flyers. They're door knocking, and they're going to continue to door knock with a lot of these folks, even though these folks wanted the Johnson & Johnson to say, listen, we have Moderna until they make a decision going forward on Johnson & Johnson, Savannah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so great to hear them engaging those church leaders. I mean, what a great way to actually encourage people in places that they are actually comfortable. Is that the main thing that officials are doing there to try to instill more confidence?
Absolutely. That is the main thing. And then it is really just educating folks. I mean, Pam is a well-known commodity in this community. There's another woman I spoke to who was actually one of the first coaches of the WNBA, and she actually works in the healthcare system here now. So a lot of folks see her as a celebrity. And so they're engaging people that people recognize, right? People that are somewhat famous in this area, that grew up here, that went out and made a big career for themselves and then returned home to work with their communities. And they're relying on them to help educate folks about this vaccine and hope to encourage them to come out and get this vaccine. But of course, it always goes back to the church in areas, especially like Mississippi, Savannah.
Absolutely. Great ways to continue to instill confidence while we deal with these other issues with Johnson & Johnson. Yasmin, thank you so much.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.